What's going on, AfterBuzzers? Welcome to the coverage of The Haunting of Hill House Part 2. We are covering Luke and Nell tonight because, I mean, who doesn't love the fan favorite twins? Do not move a muscle.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's going on, AfterBuzzers? We are here once again for your amazing coverage of The Haunting of Hill House. Amazing. That was my idea of spooky, you guys.
Yeah, I like that.
Spooky. I'm here with an amazing panel. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys.
More amazing. Hi, guys. I'm Krista Flanagan.
And I'm Taylor Gates.
Thank you for jumping on my amazing bandwagon. I am Timothy Michael, you guys. We are very excited to be here for part 2 of The Haunting of Hill House. Tonight we are covering episodes loosely 4 and 5, Nell and Luke's storyline. Last week we covered most of the other siblings, so tonight we are covering the fan favorite twins. You guys, I am going to open up with a quote just like I did last week.
Please do.
From the Shirley Jackson novel, The Haunting of Hill House. Don't do what Eleanor told the little girl. Insist on your cup of stars. Once they have trapped you into being like everyone else, you will never see your cup of stars again. Don't do it. And the little girl glanced at her and smiled, a little subtle, dimpling, wholly comprehending smile, and shook her head stubbornly at the glass. Brave girl, Eleanor thought. Wise, brave girl. No, this is not an audiobook, but I love opening up with quotes from the Shirley Jackson novel because it's why we are here. It's the baby of Haunting of Hill House, and I want to read this novel. I admit that I haven't read it yet, but it just seems like an amazing book, and I'm very excited to cover the twins tonight.
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts of Luke and Nell?
I mean, they're just so cute. Like, first and foremost, they're adorable.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as adults, they're obviously more complicated. Have been
Still
through.
adorable.
Still adorable. Very
Yes.
true.
Hey, Luke.
But I mean, I feel like Luke is one of the most sort of misunderstood characters right off the bat, just because, you know, like one of the first times we see him, he's like stealing from Steve and all of that, and so we're kind of team Steve, you know, because he's stealing from his own sibling. But I mean, this actress did a phenomenal job playing him, and the writer did a phenomenal job fleshing him out. So we get to learn more and more about him and really, really start to sympathize with him, I think, as the episodes go on.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree too. And especially with Luke, I felt more for him when I got his episode. Prior to this, it was so easy to be team everyone else because, you know, Luke was doing all of these terrible things to his family members, and we were just seeing their reaction to it, which also, I just felt like he was so misunderstood, so I really needed his storyline, and I love that we got it tonight.
It's funny that you guys felt that way toward Luke from the beginning, and then his story, as it progressed, changed your minds, whereas I looked at Luke from the beginning and thought, I just feel so bad for him, and I want to be Team Luke because I want him to succeed. I want him to be okay.
Yeah.
Because he's probably fought all of these circumstances of growing up in this house. I mean, the show is called The Haunting of Hill House.
That's true.
So you know he went through some stuff right off the bat in the beginning.
Luke.
I like what the show starts off with. I mean, clearly Luke and Nell are the most messed up out of all of the kids.
Clearly.
And it goes back to them as kids and them essentially being the first two that are haunted in the house.
Like, do we think that's just because they're young and impressionable?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do think that's definitely, a main thing.
I also think it has a lot to do with so if we look at the season as a whole, Poppy, who lost her own kids, was haunting Olivia to get to the two younger kids when she's like, you know, you have to wake them up if they were having a screaming Mimi and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like they use Olivia's sensitivity to that world, that supernatural world, to get to Luke and Nell. And the only reason she could get to Luke and Nell, because obviously Theo is the next one up in line, and she clearly wasn't going to go after Theo, because if we learned anything about Theo from our last episode coverage, you can't mess with Theo because she's too smart.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Luke and Nell weren't smart as children, because they were, but
they give off a more sensitive vibe, sort of like in the vein of Olivia, I think, like especially Luke, you know, compared to his older brother, especially like Steve is very sort of closed off and skeptical, and Luke, he is very imaginative, you know, he's drawing all these pictures, he has, you know, just this really big imagination, and he makes this really, really deep connection with Nell, who's, I would feel, is also like sort of in the sensitive sort of side of things too, just because I don't know. She just has that vibe from the very beginning. So I think that they do take after their mother in more ways than maybe some of the older kids do.
Agreed.
That's true, yeah.
I also think that them sharing a room together, I don't want to say had a lot to do with
It's
it.
like a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah, but if you look at all, I mean, this is a huge house, you guys. Let's be real. They could have had their own separate rooms.
Yeah.
Because all the other kids have their own separate rooms.
I wouldn't have wanted my separate room, so.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I would be so terrified. So it's like they were haunted together, essentially. Like, the haunting started together, and they were together from day one, and I loved episode 4. It's called The Twin Thing, and if you know anything about twins, you know that they have a very special connection, whether you grew up in a haunted house or not.
Yeah.
So for the writers and the creators of the show to explore that, because I don't think that the twins are in the novel.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't think
If anyone
so.
in
I don't think
chat
so. If anybody in the
knows?
chat knows, keep me on my
Yeah.
toes here, guys. I don't think that there is, because I was Googling it beforehand, but I don't think that there's actually an actual twin connection in the novel, at least not with the two siblings. So to have them create that, it just adds another supernatural element to it, because everybody looks at twins and their connections as a little freaky. Like one gets sick, the other one starts throwing up, or one starts crying, or one gets hurt, the other one starts crying.
Yeah.
And they explore this twin thing throughout the series between Luke and Nell. Krista, you were giving me some examples.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first one that we notice or we're given in the show is when the dad has that box of things that they found around the house, or the mom does, and then they put the hat, the top hat on Luke, and they make him an 11 out of 10 on the cuteness scale. When they,
Yes.
you know?
Oh.
Yeah, just adorable. And then Nell's like, oh, he loves it. And they're like, how would you know that? And I just know it's a twin thing.
Yeah.
And and then we get it with like the coin, when they're dropping the buttons down the old speakers that they found, and they only get the 2, and she was like, I'm scared, and I know you are too. And then, like, you know, with the neck, when Nell eventually dies and he's touching his neck the whole time and feeling cold. And they mentioned, like, an ankle injury where the other one's ankle's hurting. So it's like, and I've heard weird things like this before with twins, but obviously, unless you're a twin, you don't.
Understand it.
But it's
fully.
so cool if it's like,
It is super cool, and like I said, it just adds another element to this show, because it's, I mean, as cool as it is, it's still a little freaky.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. So for them to add that element into The Haunting of Hill House, I think is kind of
It's
cool.
so cool.
I want to talk about the fact that they are also the youngest together. So they were always together because nobody else wanted to really play with them. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when you have siblings,
Plus,
they're your younger
they
cousins.
have their own thing going on.
Yeah, they have a different set of imagination. They have a different imagination than when you start getting older. And if we learned anything from Theo, and I only use Theo as an example because she's the closest to their age.
Yeah.
Right.
Theo was in her own world. She wasn't playing with nobody. Whereas Luke and Nell, they had this imagination where they saw things and they created these worlds. I mean, you can see it from, you know, the Red Room and what it meant to Luke, which was the treehouse, and what it meant to Nell, where it was, you know, the tea party room or the playroom or whatever you want to call it. I think that's another reason why they were haunted so heavily, is because that just their age just makes them impressionable as well.
I agree.
I want to talk about, now Luke is an adult. So obviously we learned from the first episode that he has a problem. And rightfully so. I mean, if you grew up in a haunted house, you'd probably have problems too.
Yeah.
Do we think that Luke is the most messed up out of the kids? Now, we talked about Luke and Nell being the most messed up, but out of the two, who is more messed up?
And Nell? Equal? It's hard. I mean, Nell's ending was more messed up, but...
It's funny how you mentioned that, and I think it's easy for us to go and look at Nell because she
Because
ultimately
of that,
did kill herself.
yeah.
But I feel like Luke has been trying to kill himself and
Yes,
get away from
he
it his
has,
entire
yes,
life.
he has the rougher... But then, like, Sheila, I don't... Yeah.
I know it's hard.
It
But
is.
Nell has those ups too,
She
and I feel
does,
like
he doesn't.
Luke's like storyline until the very end is very much sort of like a
Downhill.
downhill, and Nell has those kind of like ups and downs. Like she does meet Arthur, and she gets that
married.
she gets
Yeah.
married, and she has those happy moments. But like that almost makes it more tragic because she had
That's
all of this
true.
and lost it
Yes,
still.
I agree.
And I do want to say, like, I feel like Luke and Nell are very like obviously sort of messed up, but what's interesting is you can see all three of the other kids are also, like, in subtler ways, like, very affected by all of this,
Yes.
too. And I don't know, we kind of, like, touched on that last week already and whatnot, but I just think it's cool that, you know, even, like, Shirley, for example, how they're like, oh, Shirley has this perfect life with her husband, and, like, we get in the last couple episodes that's not the case either. Like, all of them, like,
No
are
one
so
came out
screwed up by
unscathed.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. What I love about what you just said, Taylor, is that there are ups and downs through Luke's journey, and we get it from right from the beginning. As Krista said, you know, we see him stealing from his brother, so we originally think, oh, that this guy isn't the best guy. We obviously see that we obviously know he has a problem, and the writers really take us on this journey because we meet Luke and he's in rehab. That's kind of what his episode is about. We meet him and he's in rehab, and we get introduced to Joey, who I thought was a very interesting character, because if you guys know anything about rehab, when you're in rehab, and they touch on it on the show, it's your recovery. You can't, and his caseworker Paige says it, you can't lean on another addict when you're getting clean because we're not the most reliable. And it's completely true. And I like that they introduced Joey because they kept you on your toes, or if he's going to stay sober or not.
I know. I like loved their relationship because it was like I finally felt like Luke had someone that understood him, in which she kind of did.
Yeah.
But she wasn't his best, like you said, the best support system under the circumstances. But then you're rooting for them and you're like, oh, work it out together, you know, defy the odds, and then no, just crash and burn.
I think they did such a great job with all those rehab scenes because I felt like it was so realistic, and I feel like sometimes like people can either make it like too fluffy and like too sugar coated, or they can make it like
over dramatic
and just all dark and there's no bright spots. Because I think I misspoke when I said that Luke had all downs, because it's not true. I mean, he would get sober, he would get chips, and you know, like he did have moments of like hopefulness. It's just like almost a much rockier road, because you do have to throw in, you know, like the drugs and alcohol, which just sort of brings it to a whole new level.
Yeah. When we meet Luke in this episode 4, he has 90 days clean. So he can do it. And he alludes later on, like in his monologue, while he's standing up in front of the group, while he's accepting his 90-day chip, that he's always gone back and forth. He's gotten clean before, but he's always haunted by this one ghost. And I don't want to get into that right now. But we learned that Joey is 9 months clean. And the only reason I bring that up is because you can relapse at any time. And the fact that she was 9 months clean, and we get more of her backstory. Her mother was on her deathbed, and she was stealing morphine from her. Like, Joey was, like, messed up. And we see that she leaves, but I was never clear on why she left.
That broke me. I'm sorry. That scene, I was like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I think it's just sometimes like the
addiction,
littlest and the littlest tiny things can trigger. I just saw Beautiful Boy with the Timothy Chalamet movie, which is all about that. And if I learned anything from that, it just kind of opened my eyes to like the littlest, tiniest inkling. Like, you know, the most dramatic things, like you can sometimes get through those, and it's just tiniest, you know, like urges or temptations.
Plus she obviously wasn't clean anymore. She was back on track. She was doing drugs, and I think the fact that he wanted to get her to a hotel so they could go back and get clean again, and that's just not the path she was trying to be on.
Yeah.
And and maybe she also did it out of like kindness too, because if he would have went with her, he would have used, like, I'm sure. But you didn't need to take his $100, but she's thinking like an addict. So,
yeah. I thought that was really messed up when he goes after her.
Yeah.
And he gets the $200 from Steve, and then she steals it from him. But at the same time, like Taylor, you said, like, it's not over dramatized. It's not like this fluffy happy ending. It's real life. She would do that. And were you guys surprised when that happened? Like when she went to go kiss him, did you all know that she was reaching in to get the money?
No, I didn't, but I should have expected it. I don't have many experiences with addicts to know that's what you're supposed to, I
wouldn't say I was, like, surprised, but I wasn't not surprised either. You know what I mean? Like, when it happened, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
And then that just kind of starts off, like, this downward spiral for Luke. Like, he gets beat up, and then at first when he got beat up, I was like, what are you taking from him? He doesn't have anything. And then he's got no shoes on. I was like, I guess he could use his shoes. Yeah. Here's my thing. When he calls Paige, that scene when he called Paige and he was like, I just want to come back. I don't care if there's a bed. I will sleep on the floor. I'm shivering. I'm so cold. Literally broke me.
Yes.
I was like, I feel so bad for you. You literally risked everything to go and help.
For this mean girl. I want to say other words, but
It rhymes with witch.
Yeah, this witch of a lady. Yeah.
It just broke me, and that's one of the few scenes that we see of Luke where
He's actually really caring.
Yeah.
We got that really sensitive, sweet side of him, which we got a lot when he was a little boy.
Yes.
Like, he was always so scared, but he was always trying to protect Nell.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, he still got that in him. It's just, it was fogged by the addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that at the end of the episode, we find out the ghost that he's mostly being haunted by, and it's the guy in the bowler hat, the same one that you alluded to earlier, Krista,
Yeah.
with the scene when it was a twin thing. And I don't want to say that these ghosts are attached to physical objects, because they're not. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
They're attached to people. My question is, why did the ghost with the bowler hat, the old man, target Luke?
I think it's because of the hat. I think it just, like, he's also impressionable, but I think he was the first one to pick up his hat, which is, like, a real-life object. And we talk about how the realities, like, spill over, especially in this house.
Yeah.
So, like, that house, that hat's still physically there, whether, I mean, the ghost spiritually is. But, you know, and then Luke had that hat, which has a tie to him, and I think that was just, like, that was the connection.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Because we see that with more than, you know, obviously just Luke's character. Like, we
Yeah.
have the bit neck lady with Nell, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
And even the fact that a ghost, like, held Theo's hand, and now her hand is
yeah.
the connection. Like, you kind of see that
Yes.
throughout, more or less, in different ways.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. I like that. When Luke is doing his monologue, I just want to take a step back really quick. He's telling us all about, you know, when he went to go live with Aunt Janet, and how he was so young when his mother committed suicide. I love the way that the show deals with that. I thought it was a very honest portrayal of this kid's mom just committed suicide. You don't know at that age what suicide is.
No.
You don't know that your mother killed herself. You don't know all of that. And especially with your father not telling you anything because he's trying to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I agree with Hugh and why he did what he did. Do I think that he could have did it better? Yes.
I would have just been like, the house is haunted. Let's not go back there.
Yeah, but at the same time,
They all saw the ghost. It's not like they would have been like, BS, you know?
And it's like, what do you
Steve
tell the
might have
police
been-
and, like, other people,
Well,
too?
that's fine. Tell other people she committed suicide, but your
Yeah.
children, I'd be like, eh.
I think
It's
once
a risk, but I'd like
Yeah.
also, if you're trying not to get them back in the house, that's the #1 way to do it.
I think once you say it out loud, though, and once you accept it, it makes it real.
Yeah.
And I don't think they wanted it to be real. I
Yeah.
mean, would
True.
you?
I just wouldn't want any of my children or anyone I know going back in that stupid house.
No, me
Yeah.
neither. And back to the monologue really quick. Luke tells us, like, how he, as a little boy at Aunt Janet's house, he just, every car that passed, every headlight that shone through the window, he thought that it was his mom coming home.
Oh, that's so sad.
And the only reason I bring that up is because that whole same symbolism and the same message of coming home, like we see with Nell and when it says come home or come home Nell,
home
and she
Nell.
writes it on the wall. We see with Shirley when the porch light goes on twice in her forever
That's
model
her
home.
mom's,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we see with Luke when the headlights are shown, and he always thought that his mom would come home.
That's a really good point.
It's just the writers are just fantastic in like doing
Because
these
the house
little.
wants everyone to come home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But the way the way it's, like, shown to different
Yeah,
people
Yes.
is great. It's great.
so good.
I agree. And then this power of 7. What did you guys think about that?
Oh, another
I
crushing
loved it.
moment. It's just like a domino effect of just like punching me in the
But
heart.
yes, and it's so perfect for Nell because she's the one that they've said so many times she kept us all together. She was like the one that was always worried about, which we get into later in the funeral scene.
Yes.
But it's relative to Nell because she would write letters to Santa and they'd be
Ugh.
all about her siblings. She wouldn't even ask for what she wanted.
No.
And so it's just like she always was, and it's the whole family. So she was the one that was the little bow.
And then it's like when
Yeah.
you can't count to 7 anymore because
Yeah.
like one of them is
It's
gone.
gone.
And
Yeah.
that because it's so simple on paper. Like it's such a simple thing, like counting.
but then to
Yes.
see it, yeah.
Yes, to see it and to just like the impact that it actually has emotionally, it's like wow, you have crafted
he killed
a show.
it this episode.
Yeah,
he really
was,
did.
It was so realistic and so emotional, and I was
And then even at the end of the episode, when Steve and Paige come to get him, I was like, I literally was on like pins and I was like, you can't tell him that Nell's dead.
No, not right now.
Not right. Exactly. That's what I was like, you can't tell him right now because it'll break him. He will relapse in a second. And especially after we just saw what happened with Joey and she was 9 months clean and then she just relapsed, I felt like they couldn't tell him. So when Steve did tell him, I was upset at first until Luke goes, it wasn't an accident. That's when you knew that Luke was on the same page as Nell. And then, I mean, my mind was just blown. I was like, okay, so at least Luke is woke. That was literally my thought. Luke is woke. Luke knows what's going on. I want to talk about Luke's relationships with each of the siblings as well. Because Stephen was the one to tell Luke that his sister was dead. Mm-hmm. And Luke and him had they didn't really have much of a relationship when he was little.
Yeah, the one scene that sticks out to me is, like, I mean, Steve always played the big brother role, but there was that one during the storm where he's like, I'm your big brother, that's my job, I'll never. Mm-hmm. But he played that role with everyone, so it's hard to, they're also the only two boys, so that's also true. You would think would help, but they really didn't.
And they're just very different, like especially being the two brothers. Like we had Steve being the more like traditionally masculine one, like going to help his dad in like the basement and help fix that. And then we had Luke, you know, being the like more artistic one and who likes to, you know, dress up with the bowler hats and things like that. So I thought that was a really cool like just contrast between the two, like the very different sides. But the fact that Steve is still trying to protect him was like very sweet.
Yeah.
I think the treehouse scene is very significant in my mind between Steve and Luke's relationship because that's when we're introduced to Abigail. And Steve just chops it up to imaginary friend. And that's literally the setting of what we get. Oh, it's just an imaginary friend until we obviously
find out. You literally think it is until
we find
it
out
isn't.
what happened in the end. And she's obviously clearly not imaginary. But it's just fascinating. It's just brilliant how the writers plant that seed in your head and you just chalk it up because he's so little and you're like, oh yeah, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
That's what we chalked it up as in the beginning. At least that's what I did. Mm-hmm. So then I want to get into Luke and Shirley. Luke and Shirley, I think this is one of my favorite relationships between the siblings because Shirley was always there for Luke. And this is before the funeral home was successful. This is her like shelling out
fronting money. Yep.
Yeah, she always wanted him to be on the right track because I feel like deep down she knew what he went through when they were little, obviously. Yeah. And I feel like it just filters into him as an adult, and for her to have to shun him away from his own sister's wedding in that one scene.
It's like a breaking point.
I mean, the way that she handled it, I'm sure crushed her. Oh, yeah. But the way that the actress handled it, I mean, it's brilliant. But would you have turned him away?
No.
I don't know.
No, because it's not my decision to make as the sister. It's Nell's decision, and that's her twin brother.
Yeah.
And we even see her later on in the episode. I wish Luke was here.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not, I get why she did it, because, you know, it's her sister's day. You want it to be perfect. But then for it to be perfect, I'm sure she wants everyone in her family to be there.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know. I feel like Nell should have at least known that he tried to come.
Yeah.
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 Shirley's just the tough love sibling, though, guys. Okay.
And I love her so much.
Do.
I'm sorry.
And the scene, I don't want to jump ahead because we'll cover these episodes next week, but after, you know, the whole funeral goes down and it's like, where did the car go? Where's Luke? And like, you can tell that it just breaks her to like have to even suggest that it could be him.
Yes.
Because she feels almost, I think, betrayed by him in a way. And but you can tell that she obviously cares about him so much in a maternal way because I feel like she really tries to fill that role once Olivia passes away.
Yeah.
She's definitely tough love, but she wants it to work out in his favor. It just hasn't yet. So.
Yeah. Which brings us into Nell's episode, the bent neck lady, episode 5. Now this is one of my favorite episodes.
I cried in this episode.
I cried too. It was the most haunting, if you will, of all the episodes. And I know I use that word a lot in the last at least
haunting
2 episodes of this, but that's like the writers did such a good job in just having us use that adjective to describe every aspect of this show. And I feel like with Nell, she was the most haunted one out of everybody. I mean, she was haunted since she was a little girl by herself.
The irony.
Like, insane. Like, what is that? Like, I don't I don't even understand. And then it just filters into her adulthood where she doesn't know how to handle it. So she goes to see a sleep technician who we found out is Arthur. And we talk, and if we want to talk about,
both of our
I know.
faces right there, we're just like,
I know. And if we want to
this
talk
ruined me.
about the ups and downs of a show, I mean, we talked about Luke's ups and downs. Let's talk about Nell's ups and downs as an adult. Because obviously going from being haunted from like by yourself, actual person, will screw you up as a child. Obviously, she doesn't know that was her the entire time until the end.
Yeah.
But that is going to filter into your adult life. And we find out, like, this whole sleep paralysis thing. We find out about, her walls that she's built. Go ahead, Krista. I know.
Arthur, it just, like, why would you bring him into my life as a viewer? And, like, they show this beautiful love story, and Arthur's the best guy with the sleep paralysis and
Yes.
everything, and it's just...
The
No
wedding,
wonder
like,
Nell has issues. Well, you gotta take everyone away from her.
And just the really beautiful thing about their relationship is when she's like sitting in his office and she just says, "It feels so nice to be believed." And I was like, whoa.
For someone, to hear me or listen, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, well, because she talks about other doctors and how they're saying, it's just whatever. They chalk it up to just, you not being able to sleep.
And he's so good to her with the sleep
Yes.
paralysis where I'd be
Yes.
like freaked out. I'd be like, oh God, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, like I love how they fast forwarded the relationship because I didn't need to see all of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
they
You saw
proposed,
the
they got
best-
married. Yes.
But every part is like, oh, I love them, I love them, I love them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Take it away.
Arthur for being in one episode, well, he was in a few other episodes, but very, very
He
minimal.
left a lasting impression.
Yeah.
He did leave a
did.
very lasting impression. And I love that the writers gave Nell something, they gave her a happy moment because she was...
I do like that.
She
She,
didn't
was
have
like
the muffins.
blissfully happy. And
Yeah.
what did she say? I don't know how long their relationship actually was. It was like 8 months into LA. I don't know how long they were together, but she hadn't seen Bent Neck Lady in that whole
Yes.
time. So at least she got,
Do you guys agree with that saying, it is better to love than to never have loved
Yes.
and lost than to never
Yes.
have loved at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How do we feel about the scene when she got Theo to try to connect Arthur to her?
That was. I would do the same though, because I'd be so. I think I'd be more haunted by the. Here we go, haunted by
See?
the fact that
I
it
know,
was
it's very much
that wonderful man like got brought into my life, and he was like literally the sweetest, and I'm the reason he's dead now. Because
Yeah.
that's what she doesn't think it was an aneurysm, like, and you know what I mean. So she's obviously like
But it's funny because it actually
It
was
was.
an aneurysm because she wouldn't have killed him.
No,
As
but
herself,
it's just like
you know
her
what I mean?
thinking that. So in her situation, I totally would have been like, "Please tell me what happened to him. I need to know it wasn't me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so tough though because it's like you have to see it from Theo's side too.
Where I'd be
about
like, no.
no, because like that. I mean that screws with Theo
That
every time
crosses
she
a
touches
line,
something.
yes.
Absolutely, and she puts her hands on the floor. I'm like, oh, that's so far. Like
Yeah.
that's crossing a line.
And why would you want to be there, like, on one of your sister's worst nights ever, like, reliving that?
Yeah. That entire...
You don't think it's better
Storyline.
to love and lost than...
Ooh, this is the we're asking the deep
it's
questions.
a deep question. I
Like,
agree with
obviously,
that.
take out the lost if I can, but
Obviously,
yeah.
I mean, we're all gonna die. I mean, it's
True, it's
nobody's gonna live
inevitable.
forever. I
Speak
just
for
feel
yourself.
like, I mean, okay, Krista, do you have
She's
something
gonna
that
be
you wanna...
immortal.
I know, right? I feel like when it comes to... I feel like it's about the way that you lose. Like, if you lose from, like, old
That's
age,
true.
or if you lose
Like,
from...
if you both die at the same time,
Yeah,
happily in
like,
bed.
there
Cool.
are nice ways to lose.
Yeah.
Whereas, this is a brain aneurysm at the peak of your relationship, and it's just really hard to say, yes, I'd rather have loved and lost than to never
That's
have loved
true.
at all.
But, like, they had such a good relationship. Yeah.
I know. I know.
Okay.
I want to get into just Nell's relationships as well, because Nell's relationships with her siblings, especially with Steve, because the oldest and the youngest always have a feud because there's so many years that separate them.
Yeah.
And with Steve and Nell, I think the culmination of all of this frustration of Steve using all of her stories and for print and for making money all come to a head in the reading episode where he's reading excerpts from his book, and she confronts him about it, and it's all because of this therapist that she's seeing.
Whack job.
Yeah,
I didn't like him.
I'm glad that you stole Theo's line about how
Yeah.
it was a whack job. What do we think about that relationship between her and the therapist?
First
really
of all,
quick?
how did you not notice she was off her meds?
Exactly.
Like, therapist rule number one, I'd assume I didn't go to school for that. But, like, she clearly, even the way she brushed it off, yeah, I'm taking my meds, I'd be like, what's up, sister?
I read.
And also telling her to go back to the house.
Yeah. Okay. I read I just want to shout it out because I read a Vulture recap, and one of the comments was like, maybe in season 2 the Crane siblings will sue this therapist for malpractice. And I was like, please.
But like seriously though, I mean, and Chris, I don't think he actually told her to go back to the house, but he
a
alluded to
person
the
like
fact.
her is gonna be like, I'm gonna go back to the house.
Okay, pack the bags.
I'd be like, oh, so go back to the root of the problem. Cool.
Yeah. But I think it's established in that scene with her and Steve is that she never really spoke up for herself.
No.
Until then. Which, if you think about it, yes, this therapist wasn't the best for her, but at least she's
She was getting help.
She found her voice.
Yes,
Yeah.
voicing her opinions and how she felt after all of these years. And that kind of filters into her relationship with Theo as well, because when she tries to do that whole, get connection to Arthur with Theo, she tells her, like, oh, well, you have your limits, but only with us, never with yourself. And I feel like that's just another example of Nell voicing her opinions that she'd never had before. And I feel like it was really Arthur's death that forced her into this role of, hey, you need to speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
I just think, and then her relationship with Shirley was always very interesting, because I know you pointed it out earlier, Krista, there's a very mothering.
It is, yeah. Which Shirley just, I think, plays that role with all of them in a way. But with Nell in particular, I felt like it was very... Also because Nell was so young, and so was Luke, so I think that's why Shirley just really took over that role with both of them.
And Nell just got the brunt of it. Like, she had
Yes.
all of the nightmares, and, like, she had to sleep on the couch and all of this stuff.
That part made me angry. Like, why couldn't she just sleep with you guys? Just let her curl up in
right?
bed with you
Yes.
two. What kind of... You don't have to co-sleep every night, but she's scared, and why should the mom have to sleep on the floor? Well, the dad goes back to bed.
In this huge, really nice bed, by the way.
I would have let her crawl in with me. I, don't understand that part.
There are a lot of choices, but like I said, we covered Hugh and Olivia in last week's episode.
Yeah.
And, we said how great of parents they were, because they didn't baby their children, but they didn't overspoil their children. They were very strict with their children. There was, like, a very nice balance that they had with them. And I feel like them not allowing her to sleep in the bed with them.
Was like not giving in to the fear.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, you need to grow up. You can sleep on the couch if you want to.
Yeah,
but
it just goes to show what kind of mother I'll be.
I mean,
Just too stinking cute, though.
Yeah,
It's like,
I know.
I'll come here all night.
I know. Well, I want to talk about Nell really quick as a child, because there's that one specific scene. If we talked about Luke and not being able to let his mother go, there was the scene of Hugh and Nell at the hotel the morning after all of this happened, when the police are about to come. And they're sitting on the bench, and she's trying to grasp where her mother is. And I think deep down, because she's so sensitive and connected to her mother, she knew.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
I loved this scene also because it brings in the stopwatch, or the watch where she taps it twice, and then we see her, because he's like, when the hand's on the 2 and the 12, and then we see her at that same hotel before she goes in, and then she wakes up at 2. It's just these crossovers and the connections are so great, but that's why I particularly loved the scene.
Yes.
And I love that she also has this memorabilia from her dad, and then also the locket is, like, significant from her mom, and both these pieces ended up with Nell.
Yeah.
It's just, like, so fitting.
I think Hugh and Nell's relationship is just so interesting and almost unexpected in a way.
Yes.
Like, we get it really introduced, like, in that hotel scene. But then, I guess it was probably back in episode 1 or 2, but when she calls him, and he knows right away that she's not where she says she is. And he's, like, very protective of her. And I think maybe that all kind of, like, started during that little hotel scene where they started to get sort of closer, because they are the two that, like, really believe. And Luke does in a way too, but I think Nell and Hugh just have that really special connection.
Yeah. I want to go back to episode 4 really quick, the twin thing, because this is when we get the most foreshadowing, because we see the ropes on the spiral staircase, and Olivia is telling Hugh, hey, you should take those down before somebody gets killed.
Duh.
It's literally foreshadowing, you guys.
Yes.
Literally setting us up for this next episode.
Also, Hugh, why didn't you take those down?
Hugh, please.
But literally.
You had one job, Hugh.
It was your fault too. I'm just kidding. It was not Hugh's fault. But we get into this episode, and because of the encouragement from the therapist, Nell goes back to the house. I think mostly to find closure, and to just
I don't think she was going in planning to hang herself from the
obviously
scaffolding.
no. But I think that because of all the advice that he was giving her to, like, stick up for herself, she was getting. I think she was off this high.
You could tell she was nervous too. Like, who wakes up at what time was it? 1 a.m. and is
Yes.
like, now's the time.
Well, of course. I mean, I would be nervous too.
Yeah.
Guess it is.
I guess this is it. No better time like the present.
I think what I love most about the scene when she goes back to the house is that it was like this house is so smart because it's a devil house. Like they literally cater to what you want to see. It's Arthur. It's her on her wedding day. It's all of her siblings. Everybody's happy. The house is beautiful.
Porch lights twice to come on in. Mom's in there. Yeah.
It's like luring her in.
That was so beautifully shot though too.
Beautiful.
Like her dancing with Arthur.
Yes.
And then we find
and how
out
it flips back and forth.
Yeah. And then we find out it's Olivia that winds up killing Nell. Because Nell, we already established, did not kill herself.
No, and she was like, no, Mom.
Right. And then Olivia kills her because she wants to wake her up, if you will. And that is how we find out that Nell has literally been haunting herself this entire time, warning herself of this is what your future is. But what I loved in the last episode, and we will cover it obviously, but I just had to bring it up because it's significant to this, is that she tells her siblings at the end, the very last episode, she's like, no matter how different we've done it, it was always going to happen this way. And I love it. Like, she was meant to die.
It was inevitable,
It was inevitable, and I completely believe that.
That's just like the ultimate tragedy, though.
It really is.
No matter what you do or how hard you try, it all roads lead to this.
Yeah.
That sucks.
I mean, there are so many things that we can tear, like, there's so many things that we can, like, pinpoint and tear apart. I know that, you know, there's so many other shows here at AfterBuzz that others can watch, our AfterBuzzer fans.
Yeah, our network actually produces after shows for nearly all of your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that is tailor-made for you, and will help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be, because they are completely optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel, and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did so in the comments, and we'll thank you on air. And guys, I've been checking the comments for part 1. I appreciate you responding. I love reading all your guys' thoughts on the ending, and you know that you like this panel and stuff.
Yes.
But for now, thank you guys for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk.
And you guys, we love you. I mean, we do this show for you. I mean, this is why we're here. I mean, I did not honestly expect to have this many views and
you guys rock.
Many comments and stuff, because the show, I mean, yes, we were a little late to it. AfterBuzz was a little late to it, but we're so grateful that you guys are here. If you are watching on iTunes or Spotify, or listening to on iTunes or Spotify, give us 5 stars. If you're watching us on the YouTube live chat right now or later on, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. Like I said, we love interacting with you guys. We love reading your comments. We are going to go into one of our favorite segments called our favorite quiz segment of the week. I know that we want to, you know, continue breaking down this episode, and we can go on forever, you guys, but we are on limited time. But I want to go to our favorite segment. Every week, this is only our second week, so this is our second quiz. We're going to do a different quiz every week. This week, we did the...
Which Haunting of Hill House ghost are you?
Which creepy ghost from the Haunting of Hill House are you? We all took the quiz. I'm going to have our wonderful engineer, Jonathan, pull it up really quickly. This is what the quiz looks like. I think it's about 6 to 7 questions.
Yeah, it was real quick.
There it is, if you guys can see it. It's from BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed has the best quizzes. Our Taylor, our amazing panelist Taylor over here, writes for some BuzzFeed quizzes.
And a little bonus, I didn't make this one, but I did make Are You More Chilling Adventures of Sabrina or Haunting of Hill House? Because I'm obsessed with both of those little spooky Netflix gems. So you should go find that too.
Yes.
As well as this one.
As well as this one. But we all took this one. Go ahead and tell them your results, guys.
Yeah, so I got Bit Neck Lady, which is pretty fitting tonight. My little paragraph says, people might be intimidated by you, but that's just because you're misunderstood. You're often just trying to help people, even though you have to admit your tactics could use some work. But what else are you supposed to do? This was always your fate.
I got Olivia Crane.
So
there we go.
I think is brilliant.
Yes.
I think Taylor's is brilliant too, because we just covered the Bed Neck Lady episode, but that's pretty epic.
It says, you have a deep, unending love for your family and would do anything to protect them. Sometimes you can come across as overbearing. Sure. Not false. But it's just because you want to keep everyone safe. You can't stand to watch people suffer, and you'll do whatever it takes to prevent them from feeling pain.
Aww.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Pure.
This is why Krista's our friend, you guys. I got Poppy Hill.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Fabulous.
This is so spot on.
This is so spot on. You guys have to listen to this. You've got a big personality and the fashion sense to match. Duh. You love to give advice, whether you're qualified to give it or not. Because ultimately, you just kind of love other people's drama.
That's good.
Sure,
So
your advice
perfect.
might not always be great, but it'll result in a pretty good story.
Like, come
I mean, BuzzFeed did a really great job with this one because it's
Tailor
spot
made.
on, you guys. Guys, make sure you take the quiz. There are really fun questions in there. Like, if you were a ghost, where would you hide? What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah.
Like, there's like really, it takes like 5 seconds. That's why we have our Jeopardy music on. So, guys, if you want, take the quiz. Let us know your results in the comments. Tweet at us. Whatever, let us know because I want to see what other ghosts there are.
Yeah,
I don't
me
know what
too.
other ghosts there are. Let's get into some news and gossip, shall we?
Yes.
AfterBuzz TV News.
Now I know, Krista, you pulled up some stuff.
Yeah, so I got a fun little story from Elizabeth Reeser, who plays Shirley, as we all know. And apparently she's pretty squeamish, and she doesn't like blood or guts or anything like that. Dead bodies, not her thing. Which is funny, because she literally owns a morgue.
owns a morgue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she was like, when she signed up to play Shirley, she was kind of in denial about the fact that in order to fully step into the shoes of the eldest Crane daughter, she would have to take on not only Shirley's trauma and neuroses, but her profession as a mortician. So she was like, it was 8 months, or 9 months, I said, of filming, and she said it was basically a grieving process for
Yeah.
her because she had to get over that. But she was excited to do it and loved reading for Shirley, but she said it was definitely not a walk in the park.
That is
Yeah.
Shirley right there on
Yeah.
the screen, you guys. She's beautiful, and she's
love
done
her.
so much stuff. She's a brilliant actress. I mean, you can see it in this show. I think that's fascinating. That
Yeah.
They spent 9 months filming the show.
It's a lot.
I think that's emotionally draining.
Oh, yeah.
That's insane.
That's like a marathon.
That's like training for our marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I have a little bit of news and gossip as well. We talked about how the children represented each stage of grief, and we didn't get to touch on it, so I'm going to bring it up now. TVinsider.com says that Luke Crane represents depression, and Nell represents acceptance.
Yeah.
Which is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
That is very spot on.
I just thought that was really fascinating. We said it last week as well, if you guys forgot. Shirley represents anger, Theo represents bargaining, and Steve represents denial.
Yeah.
I just wanted to recap that again because this is the part 2 of our 4 episode arc here covering Haunting of Hill House, and after this episode that'll be the end of covering the characters. But next week we're covering 6, 7, and 8, which are all like the funeral episodes. You guys, the funeral house, home, Nell's funeral, and how it impacts everybody.
Yeah.
So excited.
So excited. It's like it only gets better from here, you guys.
Yeah.
We're very excited. So thank you guys for joining us for part 2 of The Haunting of Hill House. If you want to follow us, go ahead and tell them where they can
Yeah,
find you
hey guys, you can follow me all over social media at Krista Flengy.
You guys can find me on Twitter at alphabet_Ann and on Instagram at Taylor_Gates_.
And I am Timothy Michael. You can find me everywhere at I am Timothy Mike. We love you guys. We
Yeah.
will see you guys next week, same time, same day.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.